Yeah, Vinay, absolutely. So, thank you everybody for joining this panel discussion. I know times are tough and sometimes it seems bleak, but to carry on is what gets us through this time, and hopefully we'll all come out of this better and strengthened. So, you have taken the time out of this after your busy lives, and hopefully this will be fruitful for you. I'm very thankful to all the panelists who have again, while their full-time jobs and managing multiple things, have agreed to participate in this and share their experiences and their knowledge with us. So without further ado, um, our panel discussion today is on the topic of digital solutions for digital problems. Quickly housekeeping things. We have scheduled this for 60 minutes and with 20 minutes for Q&A at the very end. If you have questions during the discussion as we're going on, you're free to put them in the chat window, or you can raise your hand and we'll call upon you to ask your question. Before you ask a question, please state your name so that we have that on the recording and we know whom to address. And the presentation of the recording of this will be made available in the following week. So just a brief about us, L.R, what we do, why we are here, and why we are well positioned to address this challenge that a lot of brands and businesses face. We are an online brand protection company. We help businesses protect their brand from online threats and infringement across all digital channels and platforms. We primarily work on three pronged approach. First one is to prevent infringement. Second is to identify and report infringements. And third one is to nullify infringements. And this is, we do work primarily in the online space. So when it comes to preventing infringements, we work across multiple platforms and use multiple tools and technologies available in order to support brands and businesses, such as Trademark Clearinghouse or TMCH, digital asset management and acquisition, corporate domain registration and management, domain block services, social media handle acquisitions, and new brand name assessments. When it comes to identifying the challenges and the problems a brand might be facing, we work across multiple platforms and all the digital platforms using advanced algorithms. A lot of those have been developed by us, and we work on finding infringements such as fraudulent domains and websites, for example, sb1online.com, fake pages and profiles across social media platforms, be those the major social media platforms or the new and the upcoming ones, or those that might be very focused to a particular geography. Identifying counterfeit products on e-commerce websites, finding out fraudulent apps on multiple app stores, and content on websites that might be a copyright issue or for the sole purpose of harming a brand. And the most important of all, once we report these infringements, we can shut down the fake websites, suspend domain names, take action against the social media content and bring it down, take down counterfeit products and sellers who repeatedly do this and are harming brands, and suspend app from app stores. And we do all this without the need for legal intervention, and have been doing it quite successfully for a lot of brands in India. With this short introduction, I would like to move on and introduce our panelists. First, we have Panduranga Acharya. Panduranga is the General Counsel of Swiggy and currently heads legal, regulatory compliance, and secretarial teams at Swiggy. He has over 15 years of experience both as an in-house and as a practicing counsel, and has worked with organizations such as Mobile Store Limited, Videocom Telecommunications, Vodafone, and Flipkart. Mr. Panduranga has received multiple awards for his work in the e-commerce sector. He has led legal strategy for organizations across corporate governance, mergers and acquisitions, IP rights, labor laws, competition, data protection, compliance, contracts, and litigation. An esteemed alumnus of KLE Law College, he's a member of the e-commerce committee at Indian National Bar Association and the co-chair of Online Food Aggregators Working Group at FICCI. Next, we have Smriti Subramanian. Smriti is the General Counsel at Snapdeal, where she oversees both legal and secretarial function and is also an advisor to the promoters on various matters. She's an alumnus of NLS Bangalore and has almost 2 decades of experience in handling complex transactions relating to corporate structuring, fundraising, cross-border investments and borrowing, technology partnerships, acquisitions, and commercial transactions. She has worked extensively in all these years in industries ranging from oil and gas to e-commerce, hospitality to technology. In between, she has been a partner at a premier law firm where she used her experience to work for clients in highly regulated industries. Smriti has led various advocacy measures with government and other stakeholders to not only resolve disputes, but also advocated for changes required in policy and regulation. A doting mother and a wife to an entrepreneur, she has traveled widely around the globe to understand business and law very closely. And we have Stuart Fuller. Stuart is an experienced senior commercial leader who has spent over 2 decades in the domain name, intellectual property, and telco industry with organizations such as NetNames and Brand Shelter, which is part of the CentralLink Group. He has developed and managed sales team across the globe, specializing in a performance-based metric approach with a strong focus on learning and development. He is considered an expert in the field of IP and brand protection with articles, white papers, and opinion pieces regularly published. He has experience in leading global commercial teams from front, both in terms of sale activities, but also marketing and commercial operations, including pricing strategy, bid management, consultancy, and product innovation. Stuart is also an avid sports enthusiast and has been serving as the elected director and chairman of Lewes Community Football Club for almost 9 years. As you can see, we have gathered the best of the best panelists for the discussion today. Again, thank you everybody for being here and giving us your valuable time. The way we are going to do this is we have a set of questions that we think is relevant to the situation we have at hand, seeing the increasing number of brand threats and infringement that are increasing. So we'll put the question out, and then one by one, we'll call upon the panelists to share their views. And please, if you have a point or a counterpoint, please feel free to jump in. And at the same time, if the audience have a question, they can put it in the chat, or if they really want to talk about it, please put your hand up and you will be asked to state your question. So with this, let me ask the first question. Okay. So we have been using the term brand infringement again and again, but it would help if the panelists can explain in their own terms, what is it that they consider a brand infringement, and specifically that which falls in the scope of the legal team in a company, the different types of brand infringements and their impact on the brand, business, employee, and partners. And the reason for this question is because most companies today have a cybersecurity team as well. So how does the challenges the brand faces falls within the legal team's permit or the cybersecurity permit? And I would request Mr. Panduranga to start us off.
Great. Thank you, Vivek. You can hear me?
Yes.
Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, loud and clear.
Great. So thank you for this opportunity. I also welcome Stuart and Smriti. Smriti is my friend. So great to be on this panel. Thank you, Eldador first, and then welcome all the participants to this session. See, Uber point when brand infringement is concerned, we have to look at an unauthorized use of brand name and the various methods. So it is to either deceive the consumers or to make profits or ride the goodwill of a brand which is already popular. So these are two major reasons why this brand infringement is done. Not only in India, across the globe. The problem arises when there are products which are made, which were not actually made by the brand and sold to the consumers. And most of the time, the customers also believe that these products could be the product of the same brand. So that is one where these usage of those trademarks will be visually appealing similar, or maybe phonetically when sounded, it will be similar. So this is the one way of infringement. The other way of infringement is like lot of people claiming to be the brand representatives and then therefore deceive the innocent consumers, right? It could largely contribute to the cyber crimes, uh, but there are certain cases where deceiving could be possible. Otherwise the cyber crimes. So I mean, in a way, like all of this is harmful and deteriorates the brand reputation, and also several negatively impacts consumers. It could be harmful to consumers at points. So this is my take on the brand infringement.
Anuruddha, can you give us some examples of brand infringements that you have seen and tackled and currently continue to tackle?
So firstly, I would say there are certain shoes, toys, which were made in the brand name of Swiggy, and then they were offered for sale in the popular e-commerce sites. So this is one. What we do is we have a brand registration with this e-commerce sites where we report to them. I think, but there is still a problem where most of the time these e-commerce companies may not be able to solve it because the listing could be still be possible with some slight change in the spellings and all of that. May not be possible all the time. This is one. And the other one is creation of domain names. There can be fake websites which are existing, and customers are asked to visit that websites to fish their personal information and ultimately harm them commercially.
Okay, thank you. Smriti, your point of view on this, please.
Well, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here, and I take this opportunity to also hear from others their own experiences. But it's an interesting subject that you picked up, Vivek, and it's fairly complex to talk about it. I'll just probably try and summarize everything in 2 minutes, right? I think the digital world has made brand protection way more complex as compared to the physical businesses that were there. So let's start with the importance of brand protection for a digital company is that in a digital world, as you understand, the reach is much higher. It's harder for the customers to verify the authenticity. The controls and checks are a lot more harder as compared to a physical business. So if you were a manufacturer of a product, you could essentially have, like say, for example, unique packaging or holograms or many such other methods to actually make the product more verifiable and associatable with a brand. Whereas if you were an online platform, it's harder for bringing those verifications, except for some domain registrations, for example. But then the way the domains are also registered and how the technology actually evolves, it is growing in leaps and bounds, and therefore the rendition of brand infringements or copying of the brand also keeps evolving. So maybe we started with a world where people would misuse your brand by having domains registered with names which are similar to, closer to, but then you have different kinds of domain from .com to .org to, I think, Vivek, we were talking about it. There are over 200 or 300 such possibilities that you can have different domains, right?
Yeah.
And actually having surveillance or systems to protect across all of that by itself is very hard. So the internet space is a very large space where, infringers can find their own manifestations of your name in different domains. That's just one rendition of infringement. The other is that you realize that there are a whole lot of call centers which can actually be calling out your name and offering fake services on your name because you're anyways a digital player. Now, because the digital services have a large reach, people also use your name over calls to reach out to people to make offerings which may be either for fake products or not your services or products, and therefore misuse your name. It is also possible now with obviously most of the digital businesses reach out to their customers through WhatsApps or through SMSs for their businesses. Now you even have people copying SMS headers for, of course, which India has recently come up with the TCCP registrations, but it's still to be effective. So that's a very new kind of infringement, which essentially misleads customers to believe these are SMSs coming from you. You also have many other social media sites on which your name may be misused to attract people to call helpline numbers which may actually not belong to you, right? And therefore, if you were a legal team in a business like what Pandu and I are in, we have a whole host of things to actually survey at all points in time. It is extremely challenging to do it as an in-house team to actually survey and keep. That's as far as protection for our own brands is concerned, right? But for brand infringement, like Pandu also mentioned about, infringement of brands on your website. So as an e-commerce site, if I'm selling products, you may have many brands which complain about counterfeits of their brands being available. So we also have to have appropriate anti-counterfeiting measures to avoid such brand infringements on our platform. And I think all of this is extremely important, especially in a digital business where the trust ecosystem is yet to build. It's a very new business in places like India. The digital adoption is just coming up. Customers, anyways, don't trust what they don't see physically. So, in such an environment, when they get cheated on account of a brand and their experience goes bad, you essentially end up losing not just one customer, but a whole host of customers. So, I think for multiple of these reasons, it's not just a very important issue for any in house legal team which is looking at a digital business, but it's also a very challenging one. And I think all of us are just about learning how to get around it.
Absolutely on point, Smriti. I think we have a long way to go, but that cannot be a reason for us not to start doing something about it. On that note, Stuart, I know you have been in this field for over 2 decades now. You have seen where it was 20 years ago and where it's now, and probably you have a view of where it will be. So please share us your experience on global brands, on how do they see brand infringement, what they're doing about it, and where the industry is heading.
Sure. Thanks, Vivek, and thanks everybody, and thank you for inviting me. So to me, brand infringement really means anything that can damage the revenue and reputation of a brand holder. And I think reputation is really important because we now live in a very social media driven world. So we trust the views and the feedback of strangers more than we often trust the views and feedback of our own family. You know, websites like TripAdvisor and will give you an idea of what a restaurant or what a hotel looks like. And therefore, it's incredibly important for a brand, especially one that is involved in that very customer-facing environment, that they know what people are talking about. They know what people are saying about them, because what they might not see is they might not see the damage that fake reviews or gossip or lies being spread are actually damaging their revenues and ultimately damaging the customer confidence in their brand. So I think this is one of the certainly the trends that have emerged over the last 4 to 5 years. If we go back 10 years, a decade ago, we would think that brand infringement was really about counterfeit, and counterfeit is still really important. And counterfeits technology has made the detection of counterfeits much easier, but it's also made the counterfeits much more genuine and authentic looking and harder to trace in many instances. And this is the conundrum that brand holders face. It's about the engagement and the adoption of technology to try and understand the level of brand infringement. Now, we know full well that some of the technologies that are just starting to emerge will help, and some that will hinder brand holders. 3D printing, for instance, can be a fantastic opportunity for brand holders to lower the cost of production, but it also makes it very easy for counterfeiters to start making identical products, albeit bar a name. We've seen the emergence of blockchain technology and the latest trend, certainly in the US, and it's just starting to come into Europe, are NFTs, non-fungible tokens,
Right.
and the concepts behind those about creating value out of digital products. And again, for brand holders, it's something they need to start thinking about, just to ensure that A, they're not left behind and their competitors are stealing a march, but B, that somebody else isn't eating the food on their table. Somebody is taking advantage of their intellectual property that they built up over tens of years, and actually starting to use that intellectual product for their own good. So I think that's where major corporations are very concerned about the traditional intellectual infringement, so trademarks and copyrights and domain names, but they're now starting to have to look at the impact of social media, and then also the impact of the new technologies that are powered by blockchain technologies.
Absolutely, Stuart, very well said. And I think we all must have read about NFTs recently, digital pictures being sold for billions of dollars. And I was seriously thinking, can I come up with 100 images of my childhood and see if somebody would buy a collection of them for a couple of $1 million? That would solve a lot of problems for me. Smriti is saying no. I agree. Maybe my parents will, but another time. Smriti, this one is more towards you, because you touched upon is that while at one end you are trying to protect the abuse of the brand Snapdeal, but at the other end you are a marketplace, and people also reach out to you because they think there is an abuse happening of their brand on your platform. So can you just touch base on both the aspects and tell us how do you prevent infringement of the Snapdeal brand and infringement on the Snapdeal platform? And what other teams do you work with in your company and align the different teams together so as to solve this problem?
Let's talk about protecting Snapdeal brand first. Of course, we work with you, L.R, for all the domain protection and the surveillance and shutting down fake websites, and we've had great success. I think we as a company have always looked out for. We don't think every solution has to be built by us. Where there are smart companies who build a solution, we are happy to adopt, and we've found services that you offered extremely helpful for us over last couple of years. And I would encourage most other people who are here also to look at similar partners and services. And in fact, Vivek, while working with you, we have learned so much more, and we've evolved on that journey so much more. So I think one is a very quick early adoption of law tech solutions which are available over there for constant surveillance and enforcement. That's extremely important. Like I said, the problem for us is extremely complex because the rendition of a digital platform's brand in many different forms, it's harder to trace and harder to enforce because of the scale that any digital medium can provide. So that's my first one as far as externally protecting Snapdeal brand per se is concerned. Of course, Snapdeal brand is also misused in physical products, like you have a lot of misuse of Snapdeal brand on fake packaging or products, etc., that are also done. So for which we also engage law firms like any other brand would, to typically look for such instances and take enforcement actions. So we have a small team, but most of the work as far as enforcement and surveillance is external, right? So we don't believe it's our a core capability to handle it in-house. It requires many more eyes, hands, and legs to work on it because it's extremely intense. As far as the brand protection program for on Snapdeal platform vis-a-vis the products that are sold on the platform is concerned, we've named it as Brand Shield. It is, we provide a platform for all brand owners to actually complain against any counterfeits that they cite. It's an easy to use platform where any brand owner can list out the URLs of any product that they believe is a counterfeit, state their reason as to why it's a counterfeit, and also provide evidences of why they are the IP owners. So it's a fairly easy to use, and we promise about 24 to 48 hours of takedown in case of any such complaint. And we've seen that over the last year, we launched it in 2018, towards the end of 2018, and we've seen significant reduction in terms of friction with brands on account of this. We've also ended up having a lot of alliances thanks to Brand Shield with many brands for joint enforcements for protection. We've also found this to be a reason as to why we could engage in a conversation where brands could tell us proactive measures that we can watch out for in order to identify counterfeits when they sell. But apart from Brand Shield itself, we have several other initiatives. We try and do very preemptive checks on the vendor KYCs itself to ensure that we have good quality vendors. They're traceable with their GST registrations and their addresses and their bank account details. And therefore, usually someone when I first started off with my IPR exposure, there was a very senior enforcement person who said, to find the thief, you need to chase the money. So yeah, I mean, we chase the bank accounts, and I think that really helps. So we do have systems and processes, and the information that we captured in relation to transactions and the fulfillment, of course, helps the brands to also identify the counterfeiters in much better fashion as against an independent enforcement action that they may choose to pursue. So we have partnerships with brands, we have brand alliance, we have preemptive listing quality checks and KYC checks for the sellers. So I think that essentially covers very broadly our counterfeiting program in Snapdeal.
Okay. Thank you, Smriti. Panduranga, your thoughts on the same, on how do you find and protect the Swiggy brand, and what departments do you work with internally?
See, broadly, there are a couple of things that we need to understand when it comes to brand protection. Is that, how empowered, how capable of, your team members internally, which departments can come in. And it's about having visibility of such infringement, right? And secondly is that, the awareness that, people may not even notice, but may not know whether that amounts to an infringement or not. So we started with the second point, we started building awareness within the company, and our brand protection program stems from awareness and identification, and then reporting, and finally enforcement. The enforcement is completely with the legal department. For awareness, we do a regular sessions to the stakeholders within Swiggy to know what amounts to infringement, what is our brands, and then how to protect such brands. And then identification is something that is possible when awareness is possible. People will start identifying infringements, and they will just figure out, if somebody is using unauthorizedly, they will get to know. I get WhatsApp messages from some of the employees. See if it is okay or not okay. There's somebody circulating this kind of a message. Right. There are partners who also, freely use brand name while promoting or marketing their own products and services. At times, they might have done a deal with Swiggy, could go ahead and just tell the world that we just did a deal with Swiggy and use Swiggy logo details. So what we do for such cases where we were to deal with such vendors, we have a brand protection clauses very clearly identified and communicated to these vendors. And we also share with them our brand usage guidelines as to how a logo should be used anytime. And we make it like, preconditional, that Swiggy's approval should be preconditioned for all that, collaterals or art materials that goes out from their marketing activity. And then finally the reporting. Now, online space is something that we are not capable of, identifying all that possible infringements. That is when we need a service provider like Eldar, because we might manually do a search, maybe have a tool-based search, but we may not have the expertise to really utilize the tool the way it helps to give you more information than what you can do, right? If I were to simply say that. So possibility of searching online and shortlisting them, and including domains. There can be cases of cyber quarters, So all of these could be possible through a third-party company. If a company is willing to develop this ability of searching in-house, I would really appreciate it. But I think it is so expensive. At the same time, it is so takes I think it is labor intense. So it's not really easy for any company to do. And then offline, search. Online is something that we will be able to dependent on companies like L.R. But offline, it is very difficult unless you have a surveys done. You have an on-field force. So rather we prefer to utilize our own vendors, service providers, delivery partners, and employees, and make them aware of brand, and take commitment from all of them to report any such instances to us for enforcement of such infringement. So this is something that we do as a brand protection program. And finally, enforcement is, like I mentioned to you already, enforcement is always the legal department. We take help, there is a time when we always struggle to firstly identify fake websites, secondly to get rid of them. I mean, at times we need to be applying some economic sense. So initiating UDRP or INDRP proceedings or civil suit to block someone abusing our brand in the domains side. It is very expensive, number one, and time consuming. And I think with the kind of cases that comes to us on a regular basis, it is not so efficient for us to also manage. Therefore, it is like L.R's help has been greatly or immensely helped us in mitigating that problem. I think with respect to those fake websites, I am little comfortable now because you are there. So this is how mostly our brand program is structured. In most of the cases where we were to issue notices and desist notice we issue, and we also have a platform takedown process which is published on our terms and conditions. Any brand, anyone ever want to report brand infringement on the platform by any sellers listed on the platform, that is possible through claiming their ownership of those respective brands. And then we would investigate and we'll close those cases. Investigation which will be mostly, we would report these instances to the respective brand against whom this infringement is reported. And we seek for a response. If we don't elicit any response, we will consider there is no response to offer, and we will remove them. If someone were to respond, then probably we will ask both parties to deal outside Swiggy. And if there is any specific orders available, court orders, we would enforce those court orders. Broadly, this is our brand protection program.
Thank you, Panduranga. Stuart, please, if you can shed some light on this space and what the global brands do and what is the trend in the industry on the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very interesting listening to both of those examples there as to how brands themselves view the issue and what steps they're taking. And it's fantastic that we have two brands here that are really trying to stay on top, because what that means is it's increasing the confidence of the customers, but also within the online space. So one of the key things that I always talk to a brand about is, do you want to be part of the problem or do you want to be part of the solution? And one of the quickest and easiest things that brands can do is look at education. It's about educating their customers to understand what counterfeits and what fakes look like and what action a customer can take. So the concept of being able to report something that looks suspicious back to a brand so the brand can investigate is really powerful, because a customer feels empowered. They become more than a customer. They feel they're an advocate of the brand, and that becomes really, really, really strong. I also really like the idea of almost providing those marketing and digital assets for trusted partners and trusted affiliates to be able to use, so that then automatically builds the credibility into the offering. But the approach that I've always advocated is a fourfold approach, and you can remember it from the acronym DARE. So D is about detection. It's about how well a brand is detecting. Are they detecting just the core areas where there might be issues and there might be counterfeits, or are they going wider? And a really good example of this is I did some work a few years ago with a very famous French luxury goods brand, and their enforcement was their brand protection policy was fantastic. It focused on finding and removing fake items, fake handbags, scarves, all those luxury apparel. But what they weren't looking at was some of the other markets where counterfeiters were producing products that the brand never even touches. So there was like running shoes, gym equipment, pens, things like that. And because their monitoring was only focused on one specific area of the market, there was a whole lot of activity going on in the background that they were only aware of because customers started reporting it to them. So that first element about detect is really important. It's about understanding where you need to detect and how you need to detect. Then you have the analyze phase. So the A is analyze. You need to analyze. You need to understand, is it a fake? Is it a genuine product that's being sold in a way that it shouldn't be sold? So is it black market or is it gray market? Because they're two very different types of conversations. And you need to analyze the risk. Is this is there one person on Etsy or eBay selling a t-shirt with my logo on and they've sold 5 in the last year? Is that something that we want to put resources in to try and close down? So it's about understanding and analyzing the risks to the brand. The R is about responding. It's about how do you respond? So if you can categorize all of the risks that there are to your brand, category 1 are the ones you want to focus your response on, whereas something is maybe as a 5 is something you just want to keep an eye on maybe once a month or once every 2 months. And the final one is about E, it's about enforcing. So it's about what action do you take and how do you ensure that those products, those counterfeit, those risks to your brand do not start reoccurring. So it's all very well making a big effort and working with an organization to take down a website that's selling counterfeit goods, but you need to have a solution in place or a plan in place that's going to look to see if that reappears under a slightly different name, exactly the same website, but just with a different domain name in a day's time. So the sort of process that I've worked with brands is to understand that DARE model and understand where their resources sit, but also that first element about educating the consumers and turning the consumers into advocates.
Thank you, Stuart. I think this acronym will work well for every brand out there. So DARE, so detect, analyze, respond, and enforce. And I think I'll take a cue from cybersecurity team and education. It says that educating your employees and your partners is the first step in protecting your brand from the serious cyber threats, where they steal information and others. But like Panduranga and Smriti said, educating your partners as well at that where is the line between you are allowed to use the brand name and brand assets because you're a partner, and when it becomes an abuse is something that should be put across very clearly and written down so that there's no ambiguity to it, and you can protect your brand from that end as well. Panduranga, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think Stuart made a very good point, where these brands also focus on certain jurisdictions, and they don't really care about other jurisdictions, or maybe they may not be interested for the other jurisdiction for a time being. I think what is so important for these brands is to give opportunity for the consumers also to self-verify. There are few brands like Ray-Ban glass. You can go Google, or in the YouTube there are videos where you will be able to check whether your Ray-Ban glass is genuine or not. I think this awareness is something that is lacking. Most of these brands, either they sell because they'll have to not actually target the consumers. They'll have to target the new consumers that who gonna buy this product for the first time, because they may not really know whether the product is genuine or not. They should make this information available on the, where, when all channels wherever available, so that it makes easy for the buyer to make sure that he buys the or she buys the genuine product. That awareness is lacking. Even if that awareness is available, that is, people don't know where is it available. So these are the two important things that brands have to focus when it comes to products and services. I mean, deteriorating customers' experience is something last in the mind of any brand. So this is something very important.
I just wanted to add in terms of the awareness. I think one of the awareness that we should start building in our societies, I think right from the beginning, with maybe some sort of education program for children also, right, is around saying why fakes are not cool, right? I think one of the biggest problem is that there is culturally a lot of acceptance for fake, for cheap, right? And I think there is a need for a larger awareness to say why it is not all right to be okay with fakes. Uh, any fakes business actually flourishes as long as there is a demand, and there will continue to be a demand as long as people think it's okay to have fakes. So I think there is a need for awareness, and but that awareness has to come at very early stages in life. And as many of us as companies, where we are talking about anti-counterfeiting measures, working with regulators, working with the larger ecosystem, building consumer awareness. Uh, while we need to definitely build awareness around authenticity of products and consumer rights, etc., but there is a larger social responsibility of making people aware as to how the business of fakes can actually be terror money, can be black money, which is feeding into the larger world economics and having a larger impact on your life, right? I think that's also a slightly broader point, but I think it's a very important point of awareness that also needs to be built.
Thank you, Smriti. I think
Yeah.
that's very
If I
right.
could,
Stuart, yeah.
yeah, can I just pick up on that, because that's a
Sure.
really, really great point. And the the International Trademark Association have a program called Unreal, which is focused on education of school children. And I've been part of that in the last few years, delivering lessons to children, normally aged between 14 and 18, where we'd go into schools and we'd show them, we'd actually take some fake products and real products, and we'd try and get them to see if they could see the difference and feel the difference. And then we'd talk about the dangers of counterfeit, which, as you exactly say, Smriti, goes into the things like organized crime and the problems that causes in society.
Great, Stuart. A great point. I think the earlier you start and explain and imbibe this within the whole humanity and growing up, that fake and counterfeit is not okay, the better it will be when people grow up and stop accepting counterfeits and fake. Just an example that came to my mind when we were discussing this, and Smriti, this is based on the work we were doing with Snapdeal. I came across a YouTube video where the person ordered a watch, knowing that the watch is fake. The real price of that watch is about $10,000 or something, and he ordered it for 3,000 rupees, right? And he was so happy with the quality of the fake that he made a video to show that how good is the fake, that you should go out and buy the fake because it's amazing. The quality for 3,000 rupees is outstanding, and that video had so many views on it. So just shows how how much we don't care whether it's fake or counterfeit, as long as it looks good and serves the purpose that we are thinking it serves. So thank you for bringing up that point. Another question I have for everybody, and it goes down to the way businesses work on ROI, right? We all all the businesses' aim is to generate wealth for their shareholders, and counterfeiting products and stopping counterfeits and brand infringement is not a revenue generating activity. So how do you calculate the ROI of the work that you are doing, and how does it help you justify the amount of time, effort, and money that you're putting into this, so that it continues to go on, and you can continuously show improvement in the work that you're doing? So maybe Smriti, start with you on this.
My answer, thankfully, is easy on this one. At least my mandate and the way we in Snapdeal look at it is that ROI doesn't apply to something like this.
Okay.
It's way too important. The brand's reputation, which is the company's brand's reputation, and what this means for the larger ecosystem is unquantifiable, and hence calculating ROI on this is not possible. But of course, like Pandu said, at all points in time, as someone who's handling this portfolio, you would always see the efficacy of the money that you're spending. I mean, you can't be spending money for the sake of spending money, but the efficacy of that is very important rather than the ROI on it.
Okay, thank you, Smriti. Panduranga?
See, I mean, a couple of things. This infringement is rampant, right, on the online space at least. Offline, we may be able to contain this because there is a lot of efforts, right? Someone have to make a product and then make efforts to, project it as company product and sell it. Am I clear? Like,
Yeah.
Okay. So these infringers absolutely have nothing to worry about, the brand reputation. They'll have to simply write down somebody else's reputation. It's easy for them, and it is quicker for them. The effort that they may put in is not that much as anyone would really, put in the offline space. Dealing with them have to be very superior. Like, we need to be like have measures which can quickly solve those cases, deal with such matters. And secondly, the cost, right? And if I ever were to like give an opportunity of like, deal with that kind of a fake websites in a day, and I'll have to pay more money, I may not mind, right? I'm not speaking particularly about Swiggy, but I'm saying for a brand who really concerned about their brand would want to like set right examples. But unfortunately, the proceedings that we have to go through is like really time consuming and involves a lot of labor. I think that is when generally people start thinking about like, hey, we need an efficacious remedy. And these INDRP, UDRP proceedings are really time consuming. And then these arbitrators, most of the time I have gone through these arbitrators also not very, very understanding of the facts, right? There are high chances of, you having a good, good case likely to struggle at the end of the day. But, these are the facts that we need to really be mindful. Obviously, any resolution coming at a lesser cost, I mean, we will be like grabbing them with both the hands, right? Vivek, you know that.
Sure. And yeah, absolutely. I think there is a way of doing and shutting down digital things. Smriti, your point?
Vivek, I was just saying to Pandu's comment, no pressure, Vivek.
we do our best. We try and improve our efficiency so that we can keep delivering the same enforcement at a lesser and lesser cost. And we continuously strive to do that. Stuart, your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, I've always steered clear any clients to think about a return on investment calculation because it is so difficult. Let me give you an example from the my first love industry, which is football. A football team, let's say it's a Premier League football team, may find a counterfeiter who has is selling 5,000 shirts at $10 each. So potentially there's $50,000 worth of merchandise there. And they may say, okay, so what we've done is we've shut down this counterfeiting, and our return on investment is going to be a 10,000 times $50, because that's the price of the real shirt. So they're going to say our return on investment is, it's $500,000. It's not, because the people who would have bought the $5 shirt may only have $5 to spend. So they're now not going to spend $50 because they never had $50 to spend. So the return on investment calculation has to be done incredibly, really, really carefully. And normally the way in which I would structure that conversation is understanding what the brand wants to achieve. So what are the goals? Is it to try and increase the perception of the brand using a measure such as a Net Promoter Score? In which case, yeah, we can structure some of the work around brand infringements and brand protection around that. But it's it's not the path I would ever take a client down to look at specific. We want to achieve $500,000 in the next year of removing counterfeit product, because you can't put a real figure on it. It's almost impossible, because you could shut down a website, and as I said 10 minutes ago, that website just pops up again, different name, exactly the same. So unless you're able to really go deep and find the source and find where those products are being sold, and again, you have to take caution, because is this just a scam website? So are they advertising the products, but those products don't exist? So all that person is trying to do is just trying to take money and personal and financial information from somebody who they then resell on to somebody else. So again, that's why I'd always urge on the caution about any return on investment calculations.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. I think we are very close to the end of our session, so I will open it up for question and answers. And Mayur has asked a question that I'm going to read out. And others, please feel free to enter your questions in the chat or raise your hands, and we'll call upon you to ask your question. So Smriti, Mayur has a question. It says, being brand owners, it is difficult to find whether the product coming from authorized channel. What steps have been taken by Snapdeal to safeguard the interest, and how?
Yeah, I briefly spoke about this, Mayur. We do have KYC steps for the sellers to have them as identifiable sellers. We obviously have no means to check what are the authorized channels or not, because any person can actually sell the product on the platform. But we do have what we facilitate for brand owners is an ability to communicate with us on any suspected counterfeits, and then we take actions on it. If there are any specific instances or any suggestions that you have, you can definitely get in touch with me, or we can take this up.
Yeah, sure. Mayur, I hope that answers your question. If there are any other questions, please, you can actually unmute yourself and ask now, or you can put it up in the chat. Okay. While we're waiting for questions, Smriti, any thoughts and advice for brand owners who might be just starting, or startups that are looking to scale to protect their brand? What steps they can start with, how they can engage with senior management to get this going from?
I think one of the biggest challenges for any lawyer who's at a very early stage in an organization trying to bring awareness about this is to actually bring awareness within your teams to say why brand protection is important and why early interventions are necessary. It's only when something really big hits you that the management sometimes tends to focus, but then it gets very late to actually sweep in and clean everything out, and it takes much more effort. So I would think what Stuart spoke about there is something that you should, the earlier you adopt, the better it is. And for everyone starting out, you should dare.
Brilliant. Panduranga, your thoughts on advice for people who are just starting out, especially lawyers and legal team members, to build awareness within their teams, and how to go about it?
I think when we talk about brand protection, I think we are focusing on the trademark of the company. We might have to really look at copyright and all other aspects of the IPRs. But that again, depends on what is so important for you. For anyone who's starting recently, or any startup or new professionals, make sure that you have a trademark, apply for the trademark or register it first, right? That's the first step that you should do. And then adoption of those trademark, and make sure that you extensively adopt those trademark, and make sure that you also have periodically collect evidences and keep it the usage of that mark. Because in a later point in time, you might have to encounter banned infringement cases against you. In those cases, you may use this. And then obviously, like Smriti has summarized most of it, awareness is very important. Encourage people to identify and report it to you. Give them award, IP warriors, give a certificate of IP warrior to employees. Keep it like, engaging for them. So these are all a good way of, keeping this engaged. And also share stories of small victories can be shared with all of them, and tell them like, hey, so-and-so employee have reached out to us on a so-and-so case, and we have successfully mitigated this, and he is now an IP warrior, or she is now an IP warrior. Tell others, right? I think that generally builds so much of interest in the employees, right? But obviously they are also both doing the same work on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Stuart?
Yeah, I think that I agree with everything that Anuraga and Smriti said. There's not really a lot I can add on that point, actually. Yeah.
Okay, awareness and use dare, I would say.
Yes.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. We have a few minutes. I'm going to read those out. I think, Nivedita, this question, somebody from the team will reach out to you after this webinar and explain to you how we can help you with the challenge you're facing. Sanjeev has a question. He says, what all social media platforms does Snapdeal currently consider to assess for the social media risk?
Well, I won't be the right person to answer this fully, but I do think that we look at least the Facebooks, Twitters, Instagrams, and Vivek would probably know more.
For Snapdeal, we primarily focus on all the platforms that are active in India, as well as the smaller ones active in other countries. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even LinkedIn, Medium, all the ones that we search wide and find all those that could be a problem for Snapdeal.
Thank you, Vivek.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have one more question in 1 minute, and this one is for Stuart. Stuart, can you elaborate on the 200 possible domain extensions that was mentioned? And I think there are more than 200 TLDs. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, sure. So there's well over 1,000 domain extensions now. Actually, the monitoring of specific keywords across all those thousands is pretty straightforward. It's certainly something that Vivek and Vinay would be all over. What we are finding is there are some infringements in the newer top level domains, the new GTLDs. But there is protection out there, so that the Trademark Clearinghouse, for instance, is a very good product that enables a brand to pretty effectively get notifications if someone is registering in your IP. So there are the domain space has got significantly bigger over the last few years, but so has the protection and the defense mechanisms for brand holders.
Thank you, Stuart. And,
hey Vivek, hi, this is Sandeep. I have one question for the panelists. If you have some time, I can ask.
Sure,
otherwise,
Sandeep. Go on.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sandeep. I'm an ex-colleague of Vivek. We used to work together earlier, and I'm still in the same company. So here basically, I was listening to you guys give some examples and talk us through all the questions that were raised. So I just had a radical thought, and more than a question, this is just a thought, And I go back to Stuart's example of this guy selling fake t-shirts for $5 instead of the actual one, which cost maybe $50. And I understand that, what I'm going to propose might not always be possible in all the cases, but do you think that some of these people who are trying to sell fakes or create counterfeit products, rather than trying to squish them and stop them, because see, you may stop one website or one channel and they might just pop up in another channel. Do you think rather than squishing them, if you make them a partner and try, instead of them selling the fakes, if you ask them to sell the original products, does that make any sense, or will it help any of the brands?
That's a really interesting question, and if you have time, have a search for the case between Brewdog, so all one word, Brewdog, and Aldi, ALDI. Aldi is a low-cost supermarket chain. Brewdog is a very big brewer, and Aldi sail very close to the line in terms of their products. And they created a product that was almost identical to Brewdog, and Brewdog took it as competition, and they said, hey, why are we doing this? Why don't we collaborate? And they've actually collaborated, and they're now bringing a range together. So exactly what you said. I mean, Aldi, they weren't counterfeiting, they were just getting incredibly close to trademark infringement. But the reaction of Brewdog was a really unusual, but a really good example of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just searched it on Google. I'll read through it. Thank you, Stuart.
That's okay.
Thank you. We're 3 minutes over. I look at your time, so I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming in, giving us your time, especially the panelists, Smriti, Panduranga, and Stuart. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did, and I'm sure the audience learned something from it. Thank you once again. Hope to have you again on one of our webinars. Thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe, and see you soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks to the co-panelists as well.